Hello, nerdlings. It's your boy. You already know who it is. Zach Lane, aka Judge Zed, aka Zacharias the Pious of Houseland, former Lord of Give a Shit Ashir, Harbinger of Sass, and Holy Prince of the Sea of Ash, and Lord of the Game. And today, that game is Traveler, role playing in the far future. And what I want to do today is just give you all a quick. I guess I don't want to say a preview because this is coming out after the video of the session comes out, but I want to give you all a rundown, a behind the screen look of what I do to prepare for a Traveler session. Specifically, this Traveler session is going to be the first adventure of the campaign after the meet last week, and I'm gonna try to get right into it here. This is the splash page for my Traveler game. So you might already be aware, this is the previously on that we're probably already did. You may have already seen. Just going over what we did in our first mission. But what I want to show, and I'm not quite sure I'm going to be able to do this, is this. Yeah, should everyone? I'll edit it in a second. There we go. So, this is Paul Wester, a human character, 58 years old, with 230,000 credits, decent strength, dex, almost no int, very smart and educated with no social skills. And they were a character rolled by a player who jumped the gun a little bit and rolled up a character before I was ready for them to, basically. They came in and they were like, I've got a far trader, I've got this character, I got all the money, let's play. And I had to be the one to be like, no, you can't play yet because I need to be there for character generation, and we gotta stick around for it. So I had them re-roll, but I told them, send me what you have, and we're going to do that as a I'll make them an NPC, which seems like a bit of a cop-out, but the more I looked at this character, like, they were really OP and awesome, and I thought, like, what a fun idea it would be to just completely redo that. Like, completely, like, kind of, like, subvert the expectations of, like, this character's going to be a very successful trader that we're going to run into, and they're going to help us out. No, like, what I'm thinking of is, like, I hope this music isn't terrible. What I was thinking is, like, let's rescue this guy. Like, let's say something let's say something really bad happened, because I know a lot of times you start a character, you start a campaign with something, and then something bad happens, like, to get everybody into the action. But I didn't want to do that this time. I wanted to, like, something bad happens to someone else, and you have to explore that and figure out how it all went down. So that's exactly what I did here, and I apologize about the quality of my green screen. I'm still working out all the kinks with it. But I took this character and I continued to age them for 20 years. I rolled on some random tables that I invented myself for a shipwreck, and I'm gonna say that this far trader is shipwrecked for 2 decades, and that the survivors have just been scantily surviving on the surface of this planet, just barely. Very intriguing as to see how this is all going to play out tomorrow. So what I did from that point is I decided, Heaven, if you've read the Wildeman planetary profile from Mongoose for their first edition Traveler line, it goes into detail about this planet Heaven that's in the same system that has a semi-breathable atmosphere, but very dense. So breathable in parts of the planet, but once you get too low on the sea level chart, it's gonna be bad. You're not gonna be able to breathe there without a respirator or like a face mask or something. But that doesn't mean that alien life can't or won't thrive there. So that's exactly what has happened. And as the players you saw previously, they were given a... Oh, I should open that. They were given a planetary scan of Heaven that showed some strange... Let's see if this is it, yeah. No? Something's gone wrong. Have I goofed? No? Huh, having a little technical difficulty. I'm gonna have to reset this, I think. So anyway, they were given a scan of this planet that I used Traveler tools to generate. And actually, I think you may have been there in one of my previous Traveler videos. Oh, here we go. I talk about the Traveler map software that will generate a planetary map for you. And as I was like kind of explaining it here on the channel, they had an update and that I had never experienced before. So I've messed around with that update a little bit, and what it actually allows is incredibly interesting. So this is the usual planetary map that you would generate from Traveler. It is a hex map, and it is done in a way that you could potentially print and fold into a circular shape, like a planetary shape. What I've done is I've added a couple of extra settlements here as per the stipulations on the readout for the planet there, the planetary readout. Ooh, that made it that made it so much worse. I'm trying to fix everything. So I added a few extras here and there. It's a little better. And I also mainly added this right here, which is a mystery settlement. It's basically they have some very low tech psionic scanners that can pick up like Sophont thought patterns, or at least check for Sophont thought patterns against previously surveyed data. So when discrepancies or like new areas of interest pop up against like there's not a settlement here, but we're getting a lot of like Sophont thought patterns, you get something like this on the map, which is what is an invention for this campaign. So they're then going to go to this hex. Each one of these hexes is 1,000 square kilometers, so that's a really big area. But with this new update to the map-making web software here, we can actually generate an even more detailed map of that 1,000 kilometer square area, and have these 100 kilometer square hexes, which are going to allow the players basically to do a hex crawl in Traveler, which I find to be incredibly exciting. And that's kind of what I planned out here. This is just, this green splotches here on the map is just representative of, like, where those scanners picked up their signals. And you'll notice it is spread out over a very wide area. So what I've done here is the NPC character who's not part of the campaign yet crashed 20 years ago on this planet after a meteorite just completely took out their drives. They were able to guide it down into a low-lying swamp, but it's a very dangerous area due to the fauna on this world having some hyper developmental things due to the very high oxygen content in the low-lying areas. So the swamps are incredibly dangerous, and because of that, they had to rig up a special oxygen condenser, air compressor, to compress and filter pure oxygen out of the atmosphere from the high-lying areas so that they can have enough oxygen to actually go out, put on their masks, leave the swamp, and go hunting for food. Because the ship's drives are shot, the ship's radio is completely destroyed, and for whatever reason, the SOS beacon has failed. So this is an absolute worst case scenario for these characters. They've crash landed. Their power system has just enough power to cover life support, but that's really it. And they have enough gear to do some repairs for a good long while. But they'd much rather be rescued. Now, unfortunately, because of this planet's low technology level, dirigibles are the main vehicle used to get supplies from settlement to settlement and city to city. So if you're not on a dirigible trade route, it's very unlikely that people will be able to like go check out that area. And due to all the radio issues and the meteor strikes, Yeah, it is very unlikely that they're going to be seen except for this scouting vessel. So they're going to uncover a 20 years old shipwreck with survivors. One of whom is I haven't rolled them up yet, but they're going to be like an 18-year-old kid who was born like on this world in this shipwreck and has only known the shipwreck, and they're going to have a chance to like potentially take that character out of the shipwreck and do some interesting things there. So how did I prepare for this hex scroll? This is a pretty interesting setup using a proposed PC that I poo-pooed early on in the campaign. Um, what did I do to prepare? Well, I went to the Traveler Tools website. They have an awesome generator for animal encounters. Also, looking up at the core rulebook, there's an animal encounter generator that is one of my favorite random encounter generator ever in any role-playing game for Traveler. Is just incredible, like generating an unlimited amount of alien xenolife is just really it's super cool to me. I wish there was a flora generator to like generate alien plants, but I can live without it for now. So they're gonna be searching over. We'll take a quick look here. There is a lake. Yes, there are two lakes in this search area. I kind of did this randomly without much thought. And then you have a marshland, and I'll see if I can. Yeah, there we go. So there's the whole hex map. And as you can see over here, you've got all the green stuff over here. This low-lying land is marshlands, and it's very dangerous because of the high oxygen content. It's too thick of an atmosphere to breathe down there. But because of the high oxygen content, life is able to grow to enormous sizes. So I've said in my very limited scientific knowledge. So they've got giant frogs the size of like small trucks. They've got wildebeests. One of the other more interesting alien life forms that I came up with was these mosquitoes that actually give off a faint radio signal. Like they give off radio static, basically, and so you can hear ghosts in the radio static if you're in a swarm of these mosquitoes, and it can also like hinder your ability to get a message out to your team. That's going to come into play with the so I'll go a little bit more detail here. So down here you have this is where the crash is in the actual swamp. Now up here is the northernmost point that I said that they were able to get to on one of their scouting missions. It's a straight shot. It's about a 2 days walk, so a 4 days round trip to get there. They set a radio transceiver up there to deliver a message about the crash. However, because of these insects, unless you're like right next to the transceiver, you don't really get the message. You can get some garbled stuff a few clicks out, but it was really just kind of like the survivors want us to do something. We have to try to get help, so let's do this, even though we know it's not gonna work, and there's a slim to no chance of us ever being heard. So I decided to set that there, as well as I have this kind of like random encounter table. So what I did for the random encounter table, since they're only in two types of terrain, I mean, unless they go into the clear terrain, but I'm just gonna say like same terrain for clear and rough is similar because it's just like animals. I invented these kind of like herd animals that suck the moss off of rocks in the rough terrain. So they're like these cows that have the mouths of like manatees almost, or like suckerfish, and they just kind of like on the rocks and like just suck all the algae and stuff off. But at the same time, they leave like obviously they leave bacteria behind because their mouths are fucking disgusting, which seeds the growth of new bacteria. It's a fun little biological food cycle, food chain, which I like. And then I also, because that's when you're, and this goes into another tip video. If you're generating like wilderness encounters and you're in unfamiliar wilderness, this is what I do. Is I come up with one animal and I start figuring out how they fit in the food chain. Like, that's it. Like, you figure out how they fit in the food chain. What eats this, and what does this eat, and how do they? Is it okay? So you have a bird. Like, let's say you just start with a little peep peep bird. This bird eats fruit off trees. It poops out the seeds. The seeds grow. Great. Now we have fruit on this planet too. We'll come up with whatever that is. Maybe they have the same name as the bird. Maybe it's called like the bird's called the kikateel, and the fruit is called the kikateel fruit because the kikateels eat it and then they poop it out and it grows. And so people thought that the kikateel it is a tree that grew kikateels or whatever the ancient uh, whatever on this planet is. And then you figure out what eats the kikateel. It's like, well, this snake, but the snake like flies, like a flying snake. So there you go. You have a flying snake predator. Figure out what eats that, and you just keep going with this food cycle thing, and eventually you'll generate like an entire ecosystem worth of random encounters to make that are all going to make sense. So I have some carrion birds. I have some things that eat the cows. I have some things that are eaten by the things that eat the cows. And the things the cows eat. I have all of that stuff, and I do have it all written down. I don't have it all pulled up in front of me right now because I'm just kind of like off the cuff going over what I've written. And so my hope is that, okay, so I guess I should go back. I've come up with these encounters, 3 encounters for rough terrain, 3 encounters for the swampy terrain. And what I do is if you're in the rough terrain, you roll with a -3. If you're in the negatives, you pick up the radio signal from the northernmost point. So there's a good chance if you're in the high ground that you're going to pick up this radio signal that's like getting through, even though it's garbled, and you can start making your way towards it. I put this in as a MacGuffin to burn through the player's time a little bit because they're going to follow the radio signal thinking it's going to get them to the settlement, when in reality they get to the radio signal and they realize the settlement is like 100 miles in the other direction. So 150 miles, more or less. Kilometers, I should say. So very, very interesting stuff with that. It's going to drag out the adventure a little more and give them more chances to experience some of these wilderness encounters. And the reason that I did this is because this is a sci-fi game. And a sci-fi game is very similar to a fantasy game in that you have to contend with magic. And just magic in a different form. In fantasy, it's magic. In fantasy, you have, okay, we'll cast a spell to make this player twice as large as they normally are, and now we can, like, chew through all these bad guys. You have to contend with the magical spell aspect of how the players may encounter an issue. They're not going to just approach it head on. With a technology-rich setting such as this, you have to consider what the players may or may not do. The players on this planet might hijack a dirigible and do a low flyover over this area that's going to reveal quite a bit. I say, though, it's not going to reveal the true space of the crash because the crash is 20 years old and has been grown over in the swamp. However, this low flyover may reveal the original trench with a high enough recon check where this did crash land. Otherwise, the dirigible flyover will reveal the radio equipment. You'll be able to pick that up pretty easily and fly right in. If not a dirigible, the air raft that's absolutely on the scout ship or the scout ship itself could also be used to this end. However, the scout ship, I would say, is a little less good than the air raft. Would be a little better for a landing party, at least in my opinion. I'm not going to tell the players what to do. That's antithetical to my role as a story facilitator. And so, yeah, I guess really, and I didn't notice this. I'm kind of over it. This is the overall world hex. So this hex in the middle is the hex that we're seeing over here, and then you can actually get a good view of these other two, 3, 4, 5, 6 hexes around it. I knew that. And you can see there's going to be some ice cap tundra area to the south. So this is going to be a pretty cold, like, swamp. But it's possible to have a cold swamp, and I think that's going to be very an interesting thing. Potentially, the swamp freezes over in the winter, and so that's something we could maybe explore. But yeah, so long story short, that's the adventure that I have planned. My plan for the week after is, depending on how the players deal with this, we could potentially play as this crew that crash landed. I think it might be more interesting for the players to, like, forge their own path forward and not to do a flash sideways just yet. but I think it would be really unique, especially if they pick up this like 18-year-old kid. If we played as like the kid's parents and the rest of the crew, like shortly after the kid is born, and like play through a session of just like his young developmental phase, would be really. I think that would be kind of interesting. Um, that being said, I think that's really all that I had to go over for this one. I did want to just give everybody like a behind the screen look as to like what I do to prepare for one of these games, and like how does that all look. This is filmed before I actually ran the session, so maybe some of the stuff that I've planned out is going to go way differently at the game. And if that is the case, then expect me to do a follow up to this video, in which I kind of talk about like what my expectations were and what actually ended up happening. And with that, I am probably going to take a little bit of a break on Friday, and I won't be uploading anything, as that's going to be my birthday. But day after my birthday, expect I'll solve about Chicha Adventures in Lonkmar. Probably coming out Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending on how lazy I am feeling when that goes down. As well as the Traveler game, which is going to be out tomorrow night. Yesterday, by the time you're watching this video. And so yeah, thank you all very much for watching and subscribing and commenting and liking and all of that good stuff. It is the fuel that powers my creative juices here on YouTube. So thank you all. Thank you for all of that so much. And again, thank you for bearing with my limited green screen understanding so far. But yeah, thank you all again, and have a great one.